What is going on, guys? Welcome to another video. Today we are going to talk about the DJI Pocket 3 and why I unfortunately never come to use it, despite the fact that this is definitely the best camera in its own category that's ever been made. And I was one of the first people that has been anticipating this camera like nothing else. A 1-inch sensor on a super compact body camera like this has just been unheard of. Until this day has not been dethroned by anything close whatsoever at all. On paper, this camera is pretty well perfect with 4K up to 120 FPS, D-Log M 10-bit HLG, which I actually like more than D-Log M as it gives more dynamic range in the shadows, a fully articulated gimbal, 1-inch sensor, very good battery life, extreme ease of use, both vertical and horizontal shooting. But there's one major flaw this camera has. Actually, there are two flaws. One of them is not that significant, and the second one, which is for me quite the deal breaker, we'll get to now. The number one big hardware limitation about this camera is that the bottom piece of this gimbal is not able to A, turn around 360 degrees, and B, just stucks on two places. One of them is basically 0 degrees, we just call it like this, and the other one is about 335 or something. You cannot get past it, which is so annoying if you're trying to just let the camera do its thing and turn all the way around. You really have to be intentional how you position this camera, especially if you want to do tracking shots, which is very unfortunate. This is one thing that is incredibly inconvenient when it comes to a camera that is literally made for convenience. Probably it's just very difficult to make it due to all the internal cables and whatnot, but still, it is very unfortunate, and I am sure that the next iteration will somehow magically be able to circumvent this limitation. And now we come to the main part of this video, why I barely, if ever, use this camera. And the reason is another hardware limitation, unfortunately, which is the focal length of this camera. This is a 20mm f1.7 lens. And I don't know about you, but to me, 20mm is probably the most awkward focal length I've ever encountered or tried to use. On my Sony a7S III, I'm currently using the Tamron 35-150 f2 to f2.8, and it starts at 35mm, which in my opinion is already quite a bit zoomed in, but it is more or less the most natural looking focal length you have. For ultra wide, I usually use 16mm. I would also consider using an even wider lens like the Laowa 10mm f2.8, and I've been a user of action cams basically since day one. About 12 years ago, I got the GoPro Hero 3, and I also got the very first DJI Action 1. And I frankly always used them a lot and always loved them. Loved the form factor and everything about it. This thing is not an action camera. It is a compact, pocketable camera. You do not want to abuse this camera. That being said though, this gimbal mechanism is really well designed and can definitely take a beating, which mine unfortunately already has. Basically fell down from this height straight onto concrete and nothing happened whatsoever. I got a little scratch here, but that's it. It is made of pure metal or aluminum, some of these, and it is very well designed. It will probably not break, not until something really bad happens. That being said, I didn't expect that a 5mm difference from what I usually use with ultra wide from 15 to 20mm is such a significant difference, but it actually is a huge difference. And it is a difference that I'm not really able to circumvent. It is not ultra wide, it is not in the 10 to 15mm department, but it is also not medium telephoto or whatever you want to call it, like 35 or 30mm. I do not know what to use this for, legitimately. I've done some behind the scenes with it, you know, just popped it on a little tripod and just let it run, but I don't want a camera just for these purposes. I do not want just a BTS camera while I could still just pop up my phone somewhere and do the exact same thing. I shoot a lot of real estate, you know, I'm in this beautiful resort right now, and I would have loved to use this camera as my main. It is a gimbal after all already, and with a package like this, it would have been a dream to work with. But 20mm is just not there. You do not get the same vastness that you would get with a 10 to 15mm lens. So in that regard, it's also unusable. You know, 20mm would be the perfect focal length if you are intending on vlogging with this thing. It is not too far cropped in like a 24 of your phone, but it is also not too wide to introduce some distortion that would make your face look all weird and stuff. So if you're a vlogger, this might be the right camera for you. I'm not really, and even if I would be, I would probably still use a mirrorless camera or an action cam, because if I would do any vlogs, it would be very run and gun, action loaded, and something that I would need a rugged camera for that could take a beating. If there would somehow be an accessory that you could just magnetically pop onto this lens that would turn it into a 35-50mm, this would probably be my favorite camera ever made. For example, I would really like to use this as a B-roll camera. Something where I can just, if I'm out and about, shoot some random stuff, right? But again, usually when I do B-roll, I use more like a 35-50 to even 70 or 150mm lens. This is why I got the 35-150, everything in one lens. When I shoot B-roll, I like to catch more detail and not necessarily wide angle. And if I do, then I prefer an ultra wide angle. Again, like 15mm. Yeah, you can get close to your subject with this camera as well, but then again, 20mm does make the compression a little bit awkward, and it just doesn't look the same as if you would record something with a more telephoto lens. So yeah, I ordered the camera the day it dropped, and unfortunately kind of regret doing so because I barely, if ever, use it, and for that it's just pretty unnecessary to have. It might be the perfect vlogging camera, up to you. It might be the perfect behind the scenes camera. It might be nice to track subjects in an easy way. It's definitely amazing if you want to do motion lapses with a gimbal. But for these purposes alone, I am not very happy to have bought this, as well as to carry it around me everywhere I go, as I am traveling a lot. You could consider this to be the perfect travel camera, which again, I do not really think so. I either want really high quality footage from my main mirrorless camera, or I want something super stabilized, ultra wide, that can basically do it all and see everything. After I sold this, I will probably get the new Insta360 X5, maybe even upgrade my Action 4 to an Action 5 if I want the best possible quality from an action cam. So yeah, to wrap this up, this camera is straight up amazing. Objectively, it is one of the best cameras ever made. It's a technical masterpiece. It's really so well designed, except this little gimbal thing here. If this camera is for you, it is the best camera you can get. This is revolutionary, marvelous, and amazing. And I would really want to love this, but unfortunately I really don't, and I don't see anything changing about that. What I would recommend instead of this camera is basically an iPhone or another really good camera phone with one of DJI's Osmo gimbals, and then you're all the way there basically. Or a dedicated action cam. So in that regard, guys, let me know what you think about what I concluded today, and please like this video, leave a subscription. I do plan on making more videos, and in that regard, I see you around.